We've had our problems with the Cardassians, too. But now that we have a treaty, we're in a position to help. Your people have been forced to resettle all over the quadrant, but now we can make a legitimate case with the Cardassians that this is not an isolated problem. We can work diplomatically on your behalf. But first, these terrorist attacks must end.
We live in different universes, you and I. Yours is about diplomacy, politics, strategy. Mine is about blankets.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Fully Functional, a TNG podcast. I am Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
Jeff and I are veteran Trekkies, and Dory is a rookie Trekkie, and we are taking her on her first journey through Star Trek The Next Generation. Today we're discussing the Season 5 episode, Ensign Ro, original air date October 5th, 1991, and as always we'll take it to Dory for the recap.
Okay. So we start off, Picard is getting, I will say, a trim. He's not getting a haircut, I'll tell you that. Yeah. Getting a trim from, in my notes, I called this guy Blue Varys from Game of Thrones.
It's Mott the Barber.
Yeah, Mr. Mott. Yeah, so he's basically like manhandling Picard's head. It was very funny to me. Yeah. And so Mott is like giving his like opinions, like, listen, if I was dealing with the Romulans, this is what I'll tell you what I would do. And then Picard's like, okay. And then Riker is like, hey, Picard, we've received a distress call. So he's like, bye, gotta go do my work. And so then, what did I write? Man. This early on, it's an emergency distress call. Yeah. My notes are a little wonky. I used a different pen. I don't love it. Anyways, my regular pen fell on the floor, and I just don't feel like looking for it. Okay, so it'll take 26 minutes to get to the system called Solarian 4. Or the Solarian 4 colony. Oh yeah, okay, so it's okay. Now I remember. Oh my god. You think I have watched this episode 6 years ago? I watched it last night. Okay. So they're gonna head over, and Riker's like, oh, okay. So when Mott was talking to Picard, he was like, Riker agrees with me. And then Picard's like, so I hear you had a chat with Mr. Mott, and Riker's like, listen, he talked at me. I just was there. He's the best barber on the ship, so I'm just gonna let him go.
No, he said he's the best barber in Starfleet.
Well,
he would be the best in Starfleet. He's in the Enterprise. Come on.
Yeah, they only allow the best on the Enterprise. Okay, so then there's another signal of a vessel leaving orbit of Solarian 4, an audio message. Oh, so it's the Bajora people.
Okay.
Sort of.
Okay, wait. Before you continue, I need to lay out something that this episode does that is not consistent in this episode, but it's pretty much consistent after this.
Oh, you mean this exact part? This doesn't make sense.
No.
But
they are the Bajorans, and they will be known as the Bajorans from here on out. However, in this episode, they are often called the Bajora, which is only something you ever hear out of Picard going forward.
Yeah, and I thought the Bajora was specifically the name of the terrorist group.
But no, it's...
Because they say Bajorans in this episode, though.
Yeah.
They do. That's why it's weirdly inconsistent. But no, I looked into it. It's just an inconsistency that they figure out later on.
Yeah. Okay, so then they're like, this is the Bajora. We claim responsibility for the destruction of the Federation colony of Solarian 4. And as long as they are without a homeland, nobody will be safe in this sector. Wow. Okay. That's a little much. Mm-hmm. So they go to Laia Station Alpha to talk to Admiral Kennelly, whose name I hate so much. It's such an awkward, do Connolly, do Kelly. I immediately was like, I don't like this man. And I was right to not like him. Even though I went off, I just didn't like him because of his name, but I was right.
Usually, if there's an admiral in Star Trek, you're pretty good on assuming to not like them.
Oh, hey, Greg. So he's meeting up with them to discuss the terrorist attack. Oh, and he's sick. And I wrote, a virus in this economy? We're done with this. Like, ugh, Christ. We do learn, so they're chatting, and Picard does reveal to us he's got an aunt named Adele. Mm-hmm. So add that to Picard's family tree that I'm not really making, but...
Yeah. I can't... Sorry. This would just distracted me, like, when I was watching the episode. He's, like... The Admiral is, like, so taken aback that, like... Picard offers him tea while he's sick. And it's like, ginger tea for a cold? What on earth is that?
Also, I'm fairly certain that earlier in TNG, they make a reference to quote-unquote what used to be called the common cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Star Trek is not consistent about this either.
Well, maybe they meant like the Earth human cold, not the Cardassian virus.
Oh, yeah, good point. The Cardassian common cold.
Yeah.
Or CCC, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so basically... The setup is 40 years ago, the Cardassians annexed the Bajoran home world. And the Bajorans never attacked a Federation post until now, ? And this is a spin-off of militants from the Bajoran settlement camps. I wrote some of like literally what was people were saying because I was like, I cannot keep track of some of this shit. Okay, so their leader's name is Orda. And the Admiral is like, listen, I'm sympathetic to the Bajorans because their lives suck. Mm-hmm. But this terrorist attack is not helpful. And then he's like, Picard, you have to go get Orda any way he can. And I was like, this man is making me worried. So Picard says, and what do I have to offer Orda to might persuade him to cooperate? And then Kennelly goes, amnesty. And Picard goes, Admiral. And then he laughs. Kennelly laughs. I was like, what a wild response.
Yeah.
That it was like a joke. Like, well, okay. But then Picard's like, okay, but like, seriously, what do we do? And then he's like, well, promise to like look. Kennelly's like, listen, here's what we'll do. We'll promise we'll look into this immediately, but also at a later date, in like lowercase letters.
Yes.
But not actually. And like, he's like, yeah, we'll have like a chat with the Cardassians. Wink, wink. Oh, Riker then calls and he's like, did you approve a transfer for a new officer? And Picard's like, fuck no. And then we meet Ensign Ro Laren from the Wellington. Okay. Full disclosure.
Played by Michelle Forbes, whom we have seen in Star Trek once before.
I'm a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
I like Ro. I like her.
I will lay out, this is absolutely not the last time you see her.
Oh, good. Okay. I like what they did with her character throughout this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it.
So,
okay.
Ro
also, she's
is
freaking gorgeous.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Ro was introduced to the series because what they noticed in as they had been going on is that they really didn't have any luck with introducing new characters slowly, and they wanted someone to kind of fill the void that had been left by Wesley leaving. And they didn't really have any options with the characters that they had already somewhat introduced because they thought that having someone pop up a couple of times and then maybe we give them a name and then eventually we start making them more noticeable, that wasn't really going to fly with them. They didn't find that super interesting. And they wanted someone who wasn't going to mesh with the crew right away. And so they found an excuse to bring her in, and they loved Michelle Forbes the last time that they worked with her and actually specifically wrote the part for her and requested her back.
She was amazing.
She is.
Like, honestly, her acting in this kind of felt like, I don't want to say another level, but like it felt like she's like captivating. Mm-hmm. Like, I just was like so in awe of like her. She just, I really liked her. I think she was She was great.
I would say that a lot of the reason for that is the thing about TNG, and this is kind of universally known about TNG, is that as much as we may like the characters, they're all kind of vanilla-ish. Mm-hmm. I guess they don't. None of them really rock the boat in any like dramatic ways because humanity is not written to do that. Humanity is deliberately written to not have problems with each other, which is an issue that they had within Star Trek. So bringing in somebody who isn't human, who is not established yet, and using her to create conflict between the others works out extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
And
it felt like she made the hole in the boat.
Yeah, humans are all boring keeners, basically.
Yes.
Okay, so then, so Kennelly has sent her to like work with the team to like, because she is a Bajoran.
Yes.
So she has been in prison for something that happened. Man, they do, honestly, okay. I shit on Star Trek writers a lot. Okay, sorry, not Star Trek writers, TNG writers a lot. But I did like how they like kind of threw in bits and pieces of what happened on Garen 2, although I want to know more information still. Okay, so basically something happened on Garen 2 and he got her out of prison to help with this. And Riker is pissed. Mm-hmm. Man, everybody is pissed. And Riker is like, she literally gets on the Enterprise and he's like, we have a dress code. And because she's wearing like a single statement earring cuff, it is huge.
They didn't address this in the episode, and I don't know if this was established, but like later
the same earring that what's his face is wearing.
Yeah, later on you learn that the earring is actually like a religious thing for the Bajoran people. So it's actually like a sort of it's like a religious accessory. It's like part of their culture and stuff. It's not just it's not just
accessory.
Yeah. It's I was going to talk about that later, but like for me it's like it's kind of fucked up because like I think everywhere has exceptions for like cultural pieces like in present day and stuff. Not only that, Worf gets to wear his fucking sash.
I made a meme about that specifically because they pointed it out.
Yeah. It's like Worf gets to wear his sash because it's like part of his like cultural practice. But like she doesn't get to wear a piece of her cultural practice.
She doesn't get to wear her big earring.
Yeah.
And it looked so fucking cool on her.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, so cool. Okay, so we learned. So then they're like, say, oh, she was court-martialed. And I just was like, what the fuck happened? Someone needs to explain to me what the fuck happened on Garen 2. And they make it pretty clear, like, nobody fucking wants her there. Everybody is like, it's not great. But she does say that, like, being on the Enterprise is better than prison, so she'll take it. Riker is just, like, so unbelievably mad in this episode. It's almost funny. Okay, so then we get a team meeting. Love it. So they're approaching the Valo system where the Bajorans have resettled, and they have 3 Class M planets. And so Data suggests starting with an ad hoc leader named Jazz Holza on Valo 3. And Dr. C's like, yeah, I met him. He was like nice and a great dancer. And so Ro's like, yeah, he's like not the way to go if you want anything done. He's just literally like a guy, like that they like diplomat nonsense.
Yeah.
And so Ro's like, they should go to a camp on the southern continent of Valo 2 and speak to Kiev Falor. Oh, so we go there and then like Picard's like the Bajorans were so advanced before humans were even erect. Like, what a way to word it. But also,
yeah, that
like,
was a choice.
That's because it's also they're walking through like the camp, and it's like we'll call it not the most.
Well, it's a refugee camp, basically.
Yeah. So it's not the most glamorous place in the world, but it's fine. And so then a little girl comes over and Ro, okay, this is so minor, but it's more of a continuity issue than anything. So Ro gives the little girl her jacket. And the communicator thing is on her t-shirt. Or actually, I called it a muscle tee in my notes.
Hey, did you notice the other problem with that? She opened the jacket from the front. There's no seam.
Yeah, she's in the jumpsuit uniform, not the two-piece.
Gasp.
Or at least she is, like, for the rest of the episode.
Yep.
And then,
well, even in that scene, she's in it. They what do you call it? They just did like a camera trick where they when they filmed it from the other side, from behind her. That was when she took off the top piece.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a seam in it ever.
Yeah, and yeah, she somehow already had the communicator on her muscle tee. Also wrote in my notes that she's wearing a muscle tee and Kylo Ren style high-waisted pants.
That becomes really common with Bajorans, and I don't really know why, because it doesn't look good, but whatever.
This whole
Listen, she makes it work. I'll allow it.
This whole situation with the Bajorans is actually kind of becomes it's the premise of DS9, basically.
Yes.
So, and I was just thinking this the other day, that we should really come up with a drinking game that, like, you should take a shot whenever we talk about DS9 on our TNG podcast. But basically, in DS9, right now, in where we are in TNG, Cardassia is still occupying Bajor.
Yes.
DS9 begins when the Cardassians finally leave, and Starfleet comes to help Bajor pick up the pieces. And actually, Ensign Ro was meant to be on that series, but I guess she didn't want to do it or whatever. And you can clearly, one of the characters that you meet was clearly meant to be her. Even like the haircut.
Wild.
However, she quickly becomes her own thing and is actually really great.
Cool.
Yeah, so they actually end up doing a lot with, like, this whole situation of, like, the Cardassians and Bajorans and stuff. It becomes really interesting.
It's interesting. Okay, so now we meet Keeve, Falor, and Keeve's like, listen, he's not interested in helping because he won't help, even though, like, he doesn't like what happened at the Federation outpost. But then he makes a very good point. He's like, listen, the Federation, they're innocent bystanders. But even when the Cardassians were, like, fucking murdering the Bajorans and stuff, they were also still an innocent bystander. So, like, they did nothing. They just, like...
Yeah, they just stood by and let the Cardassians do...
Yeah, I think they're like, then Picard says that they were saddened by the events, but it happened within the border of the Cardassian Empire and they can't interfere with internal affairs. When did that ever stop them before?
Yeah.
So I just like when he's like, we were saddened by the events. I'm like, Picard, no. You're not. I'm sorry for your lossing these, like, people for, like, what sounds like a genocide. So, like,
I mean, it literally is. It was a genocide.
Yeah, they don't really go into the details about it here, but yes, so it is a rather brutal annexation. The Bajorans are not modeled on any particular particular human group, but they are inspired by everything from the Kurds to the Jews. And that are very deliberate in that. And this episode, I think, does a really good job of bringing up the problems with respectability politics.
Yeah.
And I would like to go more into that later, but that is essentially what this is covering, in that the Federation, everything is all nice and happy there, but clearly there is some ambiguity with the kind of effects that their policies have on other people.
Yeah, this is like one of like the first really big examples of the show, of the series as Star Trek in general, getting into the hypocrisy of the Federation.
I did kind of, like, honestly, when I was watching it, I did get reminded me of the, like, diaspora a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was like,
I think that was a very deliberate choice.
Yes.
Yeah, very diaspora vibes.
And in DS9, it gets even more kind of...
It gets pretty overt in DS9.
Yeah, pretty overt, like, parallels to, like, the history of the Jewish people and, like, specifically the Holocaust with, like...
Yeah, there are, like, direct Holocaust allegories in that one.
Yeah, because of that's, like, what the Cardassians did to the Bajorans.
They basically stop short of flat out saying that the Cardassians were systematically massacring them. That's where they stopped short, just before that.
Yeah.
Because they were using them as slave labor to essentially strip mine the planet.
Yeah, and they don't get into it in this episode, but in DS9 it's very much, they are a people defined by their religion. And there's, like, basically their religion is real. Like, they believe in these, they call them the prophets, and it turns out they're real. That's not a spoiler, that's, like, the premise to the, like, that's in the pilot.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen the pilot.
Oh, spoiler.
So spoilers for me.
She'll forget.
Yeah, so...
that's honestly, that's true.
Yeah, but that's just another example of how, like, they're very much modeled on, like, Jewish people. Yeah.
Pretty. Okay, so then now that the Federation has a treaty with the Cardassians, they can use diplomacy to do something. Thanks, Picard. So Kiva's like, listen, we live in very different universes. Picard is about diplomacy, politics, and strategy. And Kiva's about blankets. Like, honestly, that's fair. Yeah. And then I did write, is Keith suggesting a body swap? Because that would be a fun episode.
Yeah.
They accidentally, like, throw something into a fountain at the same time. Oh my god, they're in each other's bodies.
They have the Star Trek equivalent of, like, a BuzzFeed video. It's like, watch while I live at a refugee camp for a week.
Oh god. So then Picard immediately is like, hey, Data, go see that the replicators provide a blanket for every man, woman, and child before nightfall. I'm like, yep, Picard, that'll solve the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it really isn't about solving the problem. It's about
at least they'll be warm and miserable.
Yeah. Also, okay, to me, he's like, he tells Worf, it's like, hey, make sure that, like, go to the replicator, make sure that, like, these people have what they need and stuff. What Picard really should have done is given them a replicator, not just given them stuff from the replicator.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have the means to maintain a replicator, but that wasn't even, like, discussed.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, Worf is assigned to determine what the people may have in the way of emergency needs and provide for them, which is truly a wild way to word that sentence. Mm-hmm. I wrote exactly what he said, and I was like, that is a very confusing
I know what he meant,
sentence.
But he said it weird.
Yeah. So then Keeve is like, listen, my people will call your people once we know something. And then I wrote, Ro ran away. What? I don't even remember what that's referring to.
She was telling Picard that she ran away when she was young. Because she didn't want to be, like, stuck in the camps and stuff.
Okay. Man, I need to expand if I'm going to write a little note.
Yeah. Because she's like, they're like, tired and defeated, and I will never be.
Yeah. She has big plans. Big things coming.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. So, Keen then directs them they're back on the Enterprise, to the third moon of Valo 1 to meet the terrorist leader, Orta, tomorrow. Great. So, okay, now we are in 10 forward. Ro she's nursing a drink. Dr. C and Troy come in, and they look at each other, and then go over to her and be like, mind if we join you? And Ro's like, yes. And they're like, okay, we can read, we understand, and we respect it. Bye.
Yeah.
Who is not interested in that, though, is Guinan. But Guinan, okay, first talking to Geordi, and man, Geordi is pissed that Ro is there. He is shit talking with Guinan, and he's like, she shouldn't even be in the uniform. And Guinan's like, this interests me. I would like to know more.
Yeah.
So she goes to sit with Ro, and Guinan goes, my name is Guinan. I tend bar and I listen. Yeah, that's legit. And so, okay, so basically, from the little bits that we're told, Ro didn't follow orders, and 8 members of the away team died, and she did not have a defense when she was court-martialed. So I want to know more. Do we find out more about what happened?
I don't remember.
Because I feel like there's got to be more to this. The fact that she, like, didn't have a defense, like, she obviously thinks she's guilty, but, like, I want to know what, like, there's got to be more to the story than just, like, that.
Mm-hmm. It definitely feels that way, but I genuinely don't remember if we really find out, like, what actually happened, like, what the full story is.
Yeah. So Guinan's like, we're friends now.
Mm.
Okay, so then cut to Ro is doing a video chat with Kennelly, and he Skypes in, and he's like, everything is going exactly, she says, everything is going exactly as you predicted. And I just wrote, gasp. Who saw this coming, that something was up with him?
Yeah.
Okay, so, like, the team is in the transporter room. Oh, so they go to the transporter room, and they find out she beamed down 6 hours ago. And so this away team is Troy, Picard, Worf, and Data. And they go to the coordinates where Ro went down to. And they're kind of like wandering, and then a bunch of guys with guns just kind of like surround them, and then we meet Orta, in which okay. I initially wrote, oh wow, Darth Vader much? But then because of how he was talking, but then he reveals his face, that it's like half melted off, and that they cut out his like vocal cords, so he has like a voice box electric thing, and I was like, my bad, that's on me.
Like, one thing that I did not like about this, I don't know how big the stereotype was before this episode came out, but definitely after this episode, the stereotype of, like, a cave dwelling terrorist with physical deformities is something that's very well established. And I don't know if they did that based on the stereotype, or the stereotype came after this. If they did it based on the stereotype, I think that was kind of a bad idea, because the whole episode is kind of focused around trying to make you sympathetic to these guys.
Yeah, I see, because my inclination is that it's not based on the stereotype.
I don't think it is either. I think the stereotype came later, personally.
Yeah, because
I think it might be a product of like early 2000s anti-terrorism United States propaganda bullshit.
Yeah, because I think this might have been like a bit before, like, Middle Eastern terrorism was like really a hot button, like.
Well, this is after this is after the Gulf War.
Oh,
so
okay.
like,
I can never remember like
been...
when that was.
Oh, okay, the Gulf War was pretty quick as well. Like, the entire campaign was like a couple months.
Yeah, I thought it was like later in the 90s. In any case, I think it was specifically like what they did with this character. I think it was to make him more sympathetic, to show like how cruel the Cardassians are.
Yeah, okay. Dory, sorry, when was the actually, Maggie, I guess I should ask you this. When was the episode aired again?
October 5th, 1991.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because Desert Storm started in January of 91.
Mm.
Oh my god, that was 10 months before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so also Orta is wearing like the same, if not very similar, earring as Ro was wearing at the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is like,
You'll find that, I guess they didn't establish it in this episode, but you'll find that all Bajorans wear that type of earring.
Well, I like it. It is a cool look.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time I've wanted to get my cartilage pierced just so that I can wear an earring like that.
Ooh, as someone who has their cartilage pierced, do it. It's fun. But it is a really stupid long
Yeah. And
period for it to like do stuff. Actually, I think mine's more of a helix. It's a little bit lower.
yeah.
But it took like more than 2 years
Yeah,
to like stop
fully
being
heal.
annoying.
Yeah, and I know that cartilage piercings are like extra they tend to get infected like much more or easier than like a lobe piercing or most other piercings.
Yeah, mine got infected like twice.
Yeah. I don't think I've met any single person with a cartilage piercing who hasn't had at least one infection.
Yeah, but now that it's done, I still have the same earring that's in when I got it pierced. I have to go soon. I should make an appointment to get it taken out so I can wear a hoop instead of a stud. I don't know what this is. It's not really a stud. It's kind of like a flat.
If it's on like a post, then it's still considered a stud.
Okay. Yeah, so then I guess it's a stud just with like flat bits on the front and the back, and I physically can't take it out myself.
Ah, I see.
Yep. I have to go to them, the people who did my piercing, to take it out. One day.
Riveting discussion, guys.
Yeah.
I know. Listen, thanks for coming to Piercing Corner. So, okay, so Ro explains that she went down on her own to convince Orta to speak to them because she has some suspicions. And gasp, the terrorist attacks on Solarian 4? I wrote it on a different page. I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
the terrorist
that
attacks
sounds
on
We're not the
Destination
Bajoran.
1.
Gasp. Plot twist. And Troy says she does not sense deception from Orta. So,
Good. Troy has had her one input this episode.
Yeah.
yeah. So then Picard speaks to Ro and is like, you didn't listen, you went down, blah blah blah, and then he grounds her and sends her to her room.
Yeah.
Ro's like, by the way, there's like more shit going on than like and I'm like, fucking tell us, lady, like we want to know. Okay, so then Guinan goes to visit Ro in her room, and she admits that she did some shit previously, I guess. Because she's trying to be like, Ro's like, I don't know who to trust, there's some shit going down, and Guinan's like, listen, I did some shit, and the person who helped me get out of trouble and who I can trust was Picard. Mm-hmm. Are we surprised? Not at all. So she's like, you should speak to him. And so they go, Ro and Guinan go to Picard, and Guinan's like, she's my friend, you will speak to her. And Picard's like, I'll allow it. Okay, fine. So we learn Kennelly got Ro out of prison to do a secret mission for him. She was supposed to offer Orta like weapons and ships against the Cardassians for not attacking, to not attack the Federation colonies. And Kennelly was sending Picard basically on a BS mission to like negotiate. And Ro was sent because like he could like because she's already like low key in trouble. Well, I guess very high key in trouble.
Yeah.
So like she can do and say things that like a regular Starfleet can't, like legally do, like say shit. So like they're like, you can like offer some stuff.
Well, he basically was like using her as scapegoat isn't quite the right word. It's just like
the worst way to be a middleman.
Yeah, it's just like he knows that like she's desperate, so he can make her do this really shady shit. And if anything goes wrong, it's like, well, you know, she already has a history of like doing like terrible shit, so you know, it's not my fault.
Yeah. So Picard is shooketh to his core. Mm-hmm. This is an absolute shock to him. So Ro then explains that when she was a child, this is a, man, can we stop giving the women in the show like horrendous trauma?
Well,
No.
At least it's not like SA related trauma.
Yeah. So when Ro was a child, she was given candy and she watched her father be tortured to death by the Cardassians. So like, okay. So she was ashamed of his begging for mercy and his weakness, and she was ashamed of being Bajoran. And then she grew up to realize that like those thoughts were misguided, and she doesn't want to be ashamed. And she like, I really like this, that she like explained like this is what she used to think, but this is how she thinks now. Mm-hmm. And she's not like 100% where she wants to be, but she's like working on it. And I was like, I like that.
She's like, growth. I know how fucked up those thoughts were, but they're still like, they still influence me even though I don't want them to.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
It's progress.
Yeah.
So then she didn't actually do the offer to Orda because because like they didn't do the terrorist attack, and she doesn't really like, she wasn't really sure what was going on, and she's like, I'm not gonna like offer weapons if I'm not entirely sure of what's going on here.
Oh yeah, so, I think okay. Did you say that like, yeah, the reason she wanted to do this was to like help her people in the fight against the Cardassians, but like she sniffed around, like once he said like we didn't do this, she was like, something's sus here. So
yeah. So, okay, so now the plan is for Ro to convince Orda to return to the camps. And the rest of them are going to fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
So Picard's like, I think we're involved in a conspiracy. I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit.
Yeah.
Man, Picard is wild in this episode. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the Enterprise will escort a Bajoran cruiser to Valo 3 camp, and Orda and friends will be on board. So Picard, he speaks to Kennelly again. He's like, oh, how is the Cardassian virus? And then Kennelly's like, oh, it's fine, it's good. And then so now the Enterprise, they have to go slow because like the Bajoran ship is like old and shitty and cannot like warp or do much. Mm-hmm. So then Data sees the Cardassian warships like around the border, just sort of like, and they're doing like also a parallel course to the Enterprise while they're escorting the little ship. And then Picard's like, yellow alert. And then, oh no, the warships crossed the border and their weapons are getting like geared up. And then Riker's like, red alert. And Picard's like, hey, Bajorans, keep going. We'll deal with this. Have a chat. So then the Cardassian warships are close enough to talk. And Picard's like, so we meet Gul Dolak. And Picard's like, oh, hey, didn't see you there. What's up? Mm-hmm. What's happening here? What's nice to see you. What's going on? And Gul is like, that's a terrorist ship and we are here to destroy it. Picard's like, oh, wild. Okay, I see. Okay. And then Gul's like, we are prepared. Okay. Says we are prepared to take any steps necessary. And Picard goes, is that intended as a threat? And then Gul goes, it is a complaint from your Cardassian neighbors. And they have I really like that exchange. And they've got 1 hour to leave.
Yeah. Just to let you know, because I calculated this, because at one point he asks Ro, it's like, how close do we get? Like, what's the closest we get to the Cardassian border? And she's like 13,000 something kilometers. And I'm like, in space terms, that's like nothing. So I looked it up, and a satellite, a geosynchronous satellite, is 35,000 kilometers from the surface of Earth. So that's how and they're getting like half that distance to the Cardassian border. So they're like right on the fucking doorstep.
Yeah, they're in spitting distance.
Yeah, that's insanely close to the border.
Yeah. So then Picard has a call with Kennelly, and then Picard's like, I see no way to protect the Cardassian peace without sacrificing the Bajorans. And Kennelly's like, yeah, that sounds good. Just like sacrifice the Bajorans. Like, the Cardassian treaty is like more important. It's cool.
He's like,
just,
if
do it.
if that's your call, then I'll support it. Like,
yeah.
Hey, look, it's your decision, Picard. I'm not going to get in your way. I just think that the best option is...
Yeah. As my grandma used to passively aggressively say, up to you.
Yup.
So Picard deduces that the Cardassians couldn't find Orta on their own, but the Federation could, so they used the Enterprise to find them. And Kennelly's like, well, listen, we'll have a chat when you get back. Now withdraw, and so the Cardassians can blow up that little ship. And Picard's like, okay. So they move away, but he doesn't really say much. He's just like, all right, we'll just go over there. And immediately the Cardassian ship fires on the tiny ship and it blows up. And then Kennelly calls again to speak to Picard in private, but Picard's like, it's cool. We're going to talk on the big screen. We're going to take it on the bridge. It's very much the anything he has to say to me, he can say to everybody.
Yeah.
Picard's having a real smug time here, and I loved it. Okay, so then turns out no one was on the ship. They came up with this whole Ro came up with this decoy thing of the audio transmission. I don't know, it's a little convoluted for me, but whatever. But Picard is being spicy. He's like, well, maybe you should ask the Cardassian liaison who you got the virus from what he's doing. Maybe talk to him. And also he thinks that the Cardassians staged it, and Kennelly was also kind of used. Well, he was used, but he also used other people. There's a lot of it's like an inception of using people.
How'd you get that virus, Kennelly? Suck a little Cardassian dick?
Okay, so now Picard...
Maggie, it's called licking the lizard.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. So, okay, now Picard and Ro are on the planet. They're, I guess, one of the Valos. They're the Bajoran community. So they're chatting, and he will take her back to the other station in a few weeks because I got some shit to do first. And she's like, oh, maybe I should arrange my other transportation. He's like, no, it's cool. Just hang out with us for a bit. And he's like, I think you should stick around and you could learn from Starfleet. And Picard's like, you could have the potential to be one of the best officers. And I wrote, Wes just suddenly got a shiver down the spine.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. He just sits out of bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's Wes's dream. I just picture Wes he's asleep and he just sits up suddenly and went, did Picard just give someone else praise?
Yeah. Picard's deciding to take on an active mentorship role, which is probably what Wesley really wanted.
Yeah, Picard never said this shit to Wes, and I was like, hee 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 hee.
She's replacing Wes in a multitude of ways.
Yeah. So, but Ro's like, that's an interesting challenge, and I love an interesting challenge, but I have one condition. She gets to accessorize the way she wants.
Yeah.
And Picard's just like, lol. And I just wrote, she looks so cool.
Yeah.
And that's how I finished my recap with my notes. The last line just says, she looks so cool.
She does.
Yeah.
Ro Laren's
I liked Ro.
Yeah. She's pretty badass.
She's cool. And actually,
yes,
honestly, I liked this episode.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I had a good time with this episode.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, this is an episode I usually skip, but now I'm like, oh no, this is actually a good episode, because...
Yeah, it's solid all the way through. There isn't really any dead points in it.
Yeah, because I don't really usually pay attention to Ensign Ro as a character. Like, there was just stuff I was more interested in, but, like, yeah, like, watching it back, I'm like, no, this is a good episode, and I really like her character, and I like their approach to it. Because, to me... even though I desperately want to know, like, what happened in her past, I think it's good that they never fully explain it, and they don't, like, at least as far as I know, and in this episode, like,
I looked it up, they don't.
Okay, yeah. So, to me, I'm glad that they didn't, like, reveal that it was, like, it wasn't her fault all along, like, that sort of thing, because... I feel like the whole purpose of her character is overcoming your past, you know, and being given a second chance and that sort of thing. And we see that, like, the fact that, like, she didn't try to defend herself, it could mean that, like, there's something more to the story that we don't know. Or it could just mean that she's, like, she knew she fucked up and she wasn't going to fight it. You know, which I think is admirable.
Yeah, she didn't make excuses. She just was like, yeah, this thing happened. I feel fucking terrible about it. But like it's, she doesn't say this, but it's like, it's basically the vibe of like, it happened.
Yeah.
I can't do anything to like change the past, but I can like do stuff to change my future. And like, I really like that. She never once was like, nope, didn't do it, or made it just, she's just like, yeah, I get why people are like really pissed off to see me. And
yeah, I suck and I'm a pariah, the end.
But I like that she definitely shows like remorse, and she's like, I want, well, maybe not remorse per se, but like, you know that she wants to do better. Yeah, she wants to like, not necessarily like redeem herself, but like, she wants to go forward. Yeah, and it's not like, oh, to forget what happened, because regardless of whether it like 100% is her fault, or like she's just like taking the blame, or there's something in between, she's just like, she takes responsibility for it, doesn't deflect from it. And it's something that like, I mean, I assume she'll still be dealing with like in future episodes, people like not wanting to talk to her or work with her because of what happened. And yeah, I just think it's, I'm really interested to see like what we see her do next. Like what the context is of what we see her doing. And like, I am hoping we just continue to see her grow. And I think honestly, like Michelle Forbes did just such a good job. I think she sold it.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think
she shows up. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying that, like, I like that we also get, like, sort of this adversarial relationship, like, between her and Riker, because it's, because of, I forget her name, but the woman from Best of Both Worlds.
Shelby.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, great, we get a second chance at, like, maybe sort of a Shelby-type dynamic. And I think it fits because at first I'm like, or when you were describing it, Dory, it's like, yeah, like Riker's like super mad, but I think it's pretty consistent with, he's always very extra hostile to anyone he thinks is a threat to the ship. And he like he's very protective
of the ship.
Yeah, he like actively thinks she's a threat and is very insulted that like this person who they see as having like, you know, fucked up, like...
she's a bad apple.
Yeah. That it's like her...
she's coming on their ship.
In an
authoritative, like, as an officer.
Yeah.
With, like, some power. Not just as, like, a little tiny role. She was sent there on purpose to help with this exact mission. And the concern of like, well, what if she puts people in harm's way again?
Yeah.
What if she makes a call that like ends up with Enterprise crew being killed? So like it's
exactly,
it's very Yeah.
And especially for the flagship, because he even says, like, there's officers that, like, wait their entire fucking life to serve on the Enterprise. And she just is, like, awarded
better than
this.
prison.
Yeah.
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 I think that's when she says it.
Yeah.
So, like that, yeah. I think, like, everybody's reactions makes a lot of sense. Like, even Geordi was like, oh, she doesn't... I mean, Geordi's was, like, pretty extreme, but, like, I get it. From what we know, like, just the information that we know about her, it makes a lot of sense why people are, like... No, but also, you know what was interesting to me? Is the men are just, like, immediately right off the bat are like, nope, trash.
Yeah.
But the women all try to, like...
Yeah, they try to get to know her.
Connect. Because it was like, yeah, Troy and Dr. C try to approach her. And then Guinan approaches her. And I just found that was very interesting. That the guys immediately were like, nope, 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 angry. But the women were like, maybe we talk to her.
Yeah.
Maybe we see there's, like, maybe something else there.
I really loved Guinan in this episode because
Yeah.
looking at the
Guinan's
rest
amazing.
of the cast, she is the perfect character to go and approach somebody with a past like Ro Laren's.
Yeah.
Because Guinan, similarly, her people have been destroyed and oppressed.
Yeah.
And they have no home.
And I think it's also because Guinan's a civilian. Because
that helps.
What Ro did, what's implied that she did, is sort of the equivalent of, like, imagine if a soldier was on a mission and he or they disobeyed orders and it got the whole unit killed. You know? You're gonna experience a lot of hostility from your fellow military members, and especially people who are, like, really programmed to, like, follow orders and, like, are really invested in the hierarchy, and they're, like, they know what it means to disobey orders and stuff like that. Whereas I think
it didn't occur to me, but, like, the Geordi and Riker have that role versus, like, Troy and Dr. C, who is a doctor and a counselor.
Yeah.
So they're not, like, part of the military bit of it. So, like, maybe that contributed to them.
Yeah, I was just thinking
But
that
I also
too.
think I think they're also sympathetic people, and I think Troy, of all people, I would hope that maybe, like, she vibed and was like, oh, like, it's not like this isn't someone who's, like, pure evil and meant to, like, do some, like, make this bad decision. And I mean, well, she made the bad decision in theory, from what we know. I don't know, we don't know.
Yeah.
But, like, because I feel like Troy wouldn't have approached her if she was like, oh, this person is a monster.
Yeah. I think people who are, like, less, like, integrated into, like, the military side of things are probably more willing to hear, like, oh, you made a mistake and, like, you fucked up. Because, like, to someone in the military or someone who's just, like, in sort of a structured hierarchy like that, is, like, disobeying orders is, like, has a whole different meaning and sort of visceral reaction than it does to someone who's not in that sort of lifestyle.
Yeah. I think also I'm just thinking about it, and, like, it's interesting, like, how they treat her versus, like, that guy, I can never remember his name, but the guy who was the O'Brien's old captain who killed a bunch of people.
Oh, yeah.
And the way he was treated versus, like, her.
Yeah.
By the crew.
It's slightly...
And he, like, I mean, it's different because, yeah, like, he, like, slaughtered all these people. It's not his, like...
his own crew.
Yeah. But just, like, he did kill a lot of innocent people.
Yeah. And that's
that
unfortunately
is, like,
another symptom of military thinking, because it's like, that was wrong.
Them or us.
Yeah, that was wrong, but he was attacking an enemy, an outward force. Whereas, like, getting your own people killed is, like, a whole different thing. And I'm not saying, like, that's right or anything, but, like, that's sort of like how they view it. Right?
Oh yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I agree. yeah, it is interesting that, someone probably likely not on purpose, got people killed versus people who intentionally killed people for no reason.
Yeah. He definitely should have been treated a lot more hostilely, I think.
Yeah.
With a lot more hostility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I was more hostile than they were.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting because Ro's hostility is like presented immediately when she steps on the ship. She's got like she's standing on one leg and her arms are crossed and whatnot, and it's like the body language is immediately to say like, look, I'm not welcome here and I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a very classic example of like I push people away before they can abandon me.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because I think that's what Guinan says, right? It's like if you really wanted to be alone, you would have stuck to your quarters, right? It's like you want to be around people, but you just can't allow yourself to be, that kind of thing. It's like a form of protection for her, the sort of open hostility towards people. It's like not letting people get close so that they can't hurt you, right? And then also like probably fueled by her guilt of like what happened, the guilt of the situation that like she fucked up and it got people killed.
I also wonder if like she sees like, friendships or, relationships with other people as like a weakness.
Could
because
be.
because she's got like, I mean, I know that she's working on it, but the fact that like she was ashamed that her father begged for mercy and she watched someone that she loved be killed in front of her. And so the idea of like somebody that she cares about like could possibly make her weak.
Yeah. And it's also, she also demonstrates that she finds that the life of like her people, like the people in the camps and stuff, is less than. Like she looks down on it. It's like I'm choosing not to live this way, and she kind of looks down on people that choose to live that way. In her mind, she thinks it's a choice.
She's the belle of the situation.
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
She wants much more than this provincial life.
Yeah.
So here's a related / unrelated question. Is like, okay, the prison system in the Star Trek universe
Is not
does it
explained
differ?
well.
Oh no, because
No.
like, okay.
No, it's essentially never really explored in any sort of detail.
Yeah.
The only time that we see it on ships is in the brig. The only time that we see it extensively in Star Trek is in DS9, and at that point we don't really see Federation prisons nearly as often.
Yeah, anytime we see like prison stuff, it's usually like not Federation, or it's like purely through the lens of Starfleet, and like the way military law and prisons work is always different from like how civilian stuff works. So we don't know what the prison system's like in the Star Trek universe.
So I shouldn't prepare myself for a Prison Break episode.
You definitely could do that, but it wouldn't be a prison break from a Starfleet prison. It would be the other way around.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because there are prison break episodes in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Does somebody have a tattoo all over their body?
Nothing that interesting, unfortunately. Star Trek considers, vagrants and like the long arm. Sorry, not the long arm of the law. The long gunman. People of the they're either bad, in which case they look like ugly aliens usually, or they just look really angry, or they're good, in which case they're really dashing. Yes. And they're unfairly imprisoned.
Yeah.
Yep, because only ugly people are evil.
Yeah.
Hot people are good.
Yep. So it's interesting to see the Bajorans introduced here, because it's also been a long time since I watched this episode. And it's really fascinating to see what they managed to take out of this species when they go into them in further detail throughout TNG and then into DS9, as opposed to the Trill, whom they essentially radically changed. In Bajoran's case, they didn't radically change them as much as they added detail, and in the Trill's case, they had to retcon several things.
Yeah.
And seeing the difference between seeing those two episodes so close together, it's interesting to me what they found useful and what they decided to discard.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I really liked about this episode is when I was giving you sort of the clue for this episode, I sort of deliberately phrased it as if like, terrorist bad, but the episode is really about how, like, I mean, they still kind of think terrorist bad because it turns out they didn't actually attack anything, and like.
But they do bring up the question: terrorists or freedom fighters, basically.
Yeah, because they make them very sympathetic and like actually like, listen, this might actually be a worthy cause, and like they have a point. Mm-hmm. It's like, and I find that that's not something we've seen very much of in TNG to this point. That it's like, mm-hmm. And it's not something you see very much of in real life too. It's mm-hmm. like one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
I was literally thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah. Because
look
like
at TNG having nuance.
Yeah. I think I think I've discussed this before, but it's like, even when you consider like our views on Middle Eastern terrorists and stuff, and I'm not saying that it's like they're doing good things or that they are right and stuff like that, but that people's desire to do these things is not coming from nowhere. There mm-hmm. is legitimate, like, fucked up shit that the US and, like, sort of the Western world, as is, like, sort of defined by Western world as whole, like, colonial bullshit. But for simplicity's sake, there's shit that the Western world has done that it's, like, is really, you're like, yeah, I can see why people would want to blow shit up over this.
Yep.
It's one of those things, like, there's enough real shit there that people can use to radicalize people and make them do this extreme shit. So I think it's like when you're trying to combat this and you're trying to like fight this and like shit, it's like I think you really have to consider that. Just one thing I want to make very clear, it's that like, I'm not pro terrorist and I'm not like, oh, we deserve it and that kind of shit. I'm very much not. I'm just saying,
we deserve
like,
it.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, there's kernels of truth to, like, what they believe. And I think it's worth examining those kernels of truth and, like, yeah. I just think trying to see their motivations is more useful than just being like, we're gonna bomb them. In terms of, like, making this stop. In, like, stopping people from blowing shit up.
As somebody who is very much on the side of deep-seated worldwide problems require, unfortunately, dangerous and radical solutions, mm-hmm. I won't be the one to propose what the best solutions are because I'm an uneducated pleb in that regard. Yeah. I don't know. But I'll
do it. I'll tell everybody what to do.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm the last person.
Hey, you could be a politician.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because they love to tell people things even when they're ignorant about them.
And I'm really good at making things up. I've been doing it for many episodes now. For over 100 episodes. I come up with new things every episode. There we go. I could be a politician.
So the episode does a lot to try to change our minds, not about terrorism in general, but about these particular terrorists. Mm-hmm. And in the end, the episode falls short of really making or giving us a definite answer. And the thing is that, like, message shows in Star Trek are not inherently good or bad just on the strength of the message. There are plenty of message shows within Star Trek that I think are really good messages wrapped around extremely awful episodes. And those episodes will often be given credit where they aren't deserved, at least that's the way that I see it. This episode I don't think is one of them. It's one that could have gone much more committed with its messaging, but it decided to stay ambiguous, both about the terrorism angle and about the respectability politics angle. And I don't necessarily think that was a bad idea. I think bringing it up helped serve what they were trying to do with this story much more, which was tell a personal story about a new character. They weren't going for a message show. And in some ways, that's probably better. Terrorism, even back in the 1990s, terrorism was a loaded term. And it still is today, probably much worse so since 9/11 in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
But being able to use that and not immediately spend the entire episode painting them as the villains from beginning to end was an excellent idea. And we actually do end up going into DS9 later and getting Kira and other Bajorans flat out identifying as terrorists and being proud of it. And I think that this episode does a lot to lay the groundwork for that. And I will give it so much more credit than maybe it deserves, because it's a good episode. It's nowhere in the top 10 for me, but it's a good episode.
Yeah.
And it deserves a lot of credit for what it laid to come following it.
Yeah. And they even admit in the episode, because the guy's like, oh, like one terrorist attack and you're willing to like listen to us and try to help us? Like, maybe we should have attacked you guys sooner.
I love that one.
And, and in previous episodes, I think there was an episode in like season 1 or 2 where Data's like, he asks Picard, it's like, why are we so against violence when it seems to work a lot? You know, like how, when it seems like violent revolution seems to work. So I think like Star Trek does like sort of, I think it's ultimately like, at least TNG is like ultimately like diplomacy over violence kind of deal.
Absolutely, yeah.
DS9,
but DS9, yeah, it goes into the, you know what, diplomacy doesn't always work. The thing is that with respectability politics specifically, the people in power are the ones who want you to go through proper channels to do everything.
Yeah.
Because they control those channels.
Yeah, exactly.
And that way they can control the narrative, they can control the flow of power, and they can make sure that they have everything wrapped around their finger and that they have absolute control over it. And that's a problem when you're trying to change a system or change a radical problem, especially when it comes to oppression. Yeah. So it's kind of sad that this episode doesn't end up going into as much of the issue of oppression, but once again, I'm very sad that it opens up that door forthcoming.
Yeah. I think you meant to say you're very happy that it opened. Yeah.
I'm very glad that it opens that door in the future.
Yeah. I think
yes, you can edit that.
Yeah. I think this episode hints at a lot of like good stuff, and it didn't like. Yeah, I'm glad that it didn't come down to like trying to serve a message, because like this topic it is very complicated, and I don't know that there's one right answer. So it wouldn't make sense for an episode dealing with this to just present one right answer.
Yeah,
it's
a
end, little
actually.
Sorry, I just want to say, I think it's a little bit of a cop-out that it turned out that they didn't actually attack anyone.
I agree.
And that sort of thing.
I agree, yeah.
But I feel like you know, they wanted to have their cake and eat it too.
The thing is that the episode, as I said, it does a lot to try to change our minds about whether they're terrorists or freedom fighters, but it isn't anything that the Bajorans as a terrorist group do or say in order to change the audience's mind in the end.
Yeah.
It's Ro Laren's confession in Picard's ready room that does it. And it ends up being a very personal story because of that. And it still goes to serve what ends up being the overall theme of the episode.
Yeah, and I think credit that they don't punish her character for wanting to have taken the violent approach. Like, Picard doesn't
agreed.
admonish her for wanting to help her people, like, fight and, like, commit violence, right?
You notice when she admits it at first, he's like super cold about it. He's like direct and to the point, specifically when she's talking about the issue with the Admiral. But I think that's because finally he feels like he has some like control over the situation. It's, oh, now the ball's in my court.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so with that, let's get to favorite lines and moments.
I liked everything with Ro and Guinan. I liked Gul Tolak, the Cardassian guy, going, we are prepared to take any steps necessary. And Picard goes, is that intended as a threat? And then Gul goes, it is a complaint from your Cardassian neighbors.
Yeah.
I would like to point out, I would like to offer an apology, Dory. I said the last time that we saw the Cardassians that we would never see that uniform again, and I was incorrect because it came up one more time.
How dare you?
I'm sorry. I accept full responsibility for this.
That's it. I'm leaving.
Okay, good. Bye. No, that's it. Show's over, guys.
Yeah, just like not even finished, but just fine. I liked that how kind of like sassy Picard was, just like how spicy he was when he was like, kind of like maybe this and this, and tell the Cardassian liaison I say what's up. Want some tea, bitch? He doesn't actually say that, but. Listen, if you didn't watch the episode and you're just listening to this episode, he did say that. I like Guinan's line, my name is Guinan, I tend bar and I listen. I liked the earring.
My favorite bit was when Picard's having the conversation with that guy in the refugee camp, where he calls out the hypocrisy of the Federation. He's like, you guys have always been innocent bystanders. Like, you stood by and let the Cardassians like genocide us, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I also do like your life is like politics and diplomacy and strategy, and Keeve's all about the blankets.
Yeah.
For me, it's definitely the absolutely lovely teardown that Picard has of our evil admiral towards the end of the episode, and the fact that the admiral does like the evil admiral smirk, just like, you can't get me, I'm too powerful, and it's clear that he's just fucking talking out of his ass, and he's like, nothing's wrong here at all, everything's going fine. I loved Picard's like sarcastic teardown at him. It was great.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see one of these like admirals, like actually, I'd love to see the consequences of their shitty actions, because these guys keep doing this shit. And
yeah, what is it with Starfleet and evil admirals?
Like, I want to see the justice for these people doing bad shit. This guy, right to jail, but I want to see him go right to jail.
Yeah.
Because we just end it with like, well, that's it. Like, not just this episode. This happens a bunch of times. Like, they kind of just like, I guess something happens off screen, but I need I need like, I need to see it. I need to be like, haha, you are getting your comeuppance for being shitty. Is that too much to ask, or am I going to be disappointed? I never get to see anybody suffer the consequences of their actions.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think so. I think it's mostly like it happens off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until DS9, because DS9 is like sort of is more serialized, so
yes,
you see some consequences.
I'm going to make a note, and one day when I finally write my Star Trek episode that we perform on here, there will be arrests. there will be consequences for some admirals.
Just write Law and Order Star Trek.
Burn, burn.
Fuck, a lot of Star Trek episodes need to be SVU episodes. Jesus.
Yeah, Christ.
All right.
It's the crossover we didn't want.
Yeah, seriously. Okay. I believe that brings us to predictions for the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, the next episode is called Silicon Avatar. And
that could mean so many things.
Yeah. I don't think the title really helps you, honestly.
This isn't a spoiler, but they chose the title, I think, while they were working the episode, and they just thought it sounded really cool, and none of the writers actually know what the title means in terms of what they were going for.
Oh,
do you know what it sounds like? It sounds like a really polite way of saying a sex doll.
Yeah, it does.
It's Silicon Avatar, by the way, not silicone.
Oh, sorry.
Whatever.
Silicon Avatar.
Silicone is a rubbery substance. Silicon is not.
Yeah. Jeff, I'm just realizing was there any sort of background corner stuff for this episode?
Not much. No, everything that I told you with actually there was one thing. Background corner segue for a moment. The Cardassians were not to be the original bad guys in this episode. It was supposed to be the Romulans who had been the ones that annexed Bajor, and they decided against it. Actually, you can thank Rick Berman for that one, because he decided we've seen too much of the Romulans lately, so maybe we should pick out someone else that we've had. Hey, how about those Cardassian guys? They were fun. Let's do them again.
Yeah, and I think Cardassian adds like a layer of complexity to the issue. Because it's like...
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen much of the Cardassians, and they aren't super different from the Romulans at this point in time.
Yeah, but it's kind of implied that the Romulans were like a completely closed off. So it's very unlikely that the Federation knew something like that was happening behind their borders.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like they at least had more internal knowledge of what was going on in Cardassian borders. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, so Silicon Avatar, I forget the name of the planet, but the Enterprise is helping some people colonize a planet, or terraform a planet, or do something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, terraform sounds better.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, they're helping some people establish, like, a colony on a planet. And turns out one of the scientists is a survivor of the attack that fucked up Data's home planet.
Oh.
Yeah, if you remember what the crystalline entity is.
No.
It was a CGI crystal snowflake thing in space.
Yeah, it's the thing that attacked the planet that Data and Dr. Sun were on that killed everybody and ate up all the life on the planet. So one of the scientist ladies is a survivor of that.
Oh.
And we see the return of the crystalline entity.
Oh, boy. Well, this is what I get when I say I wanted some continuity. Okay, so,
by the way, because she was a colonist on that planet, she was a colonist on that planet, she knows who Lore is and has met Lore.
Oh my god, is she gonna think Data is Lore?
You tell me.
Yes. She's gonna think Data is Lore. I think they're gonna help, and she'll be like, wait, what the fuck? And then Data's gonna be like, I'm Data. And she's like, bitch, no, you're Lore. And he's like, nope, just Data. She's like, nope, you're Lore, and you're a monster. You're a fake and a phony, and I wish I never laid eyes on you. And Data's like, okay, well, I'm still gonna help you. I wonder if the like crystal thing is like following this lady. Maybe she's a bad luck charm. A bad luck charm. That doesn't make sense. Maybe there's something in her that the crystal's like, I want it and I will destroy everything. No, not actually. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I think she's gonna be like, and just like not happy to see Data, and I think she's gonna be not nice to Data, and I think Data will just like not. I think that maybe like Data will kind of like logically understand, but like I feel like okay, I would love for Data to kind of feel something about this, of like maybe something of like, because I know he's not going to be like, oh, I'm sad necessarily, but like maybe he'll want to make like find a way to like not necessarily make her like him, but make her be like that he is not Lore and she can trust him and that he's here to help.
Yeah.
So I think he'll go out of his way to prove that like he is not who she thinks he is, and that like he has good intentions. He's here to help.
Mm-hmm. And
is that enough for a prediction?
I was just going to ask, what do you think happens with the crystalline entity?
I think it shows up and says, "Bitch, I'm back" by popular demand. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't even remember it from last time. But I think it's going to show up and be a dick.
Okay.
I think maybe it'll want something from, I think it'll probably like want to eat this planet, like nom 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 it up. A classic response to a planet. Nom 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 nom. Ooh, maybe it'll be like a gradual thing. It'll like show up. Oh. I don't know. I think it's just going to be bad.
All right. I think
it's a bad crystal entity.
I think I'll let you off the hook. Finally.
Thank you.
Say
I have nothing else. I don't know what else.
All right. Well, if you want to see if Dory's correct, or if you want to know a thing that happens, watch along with us and join us for the next episode of Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.
Goodbye.